on in, step, step. Stepping 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 on in, step.
I'd like to welcome to another segment of Recovery Live. Recovery Live is moving, it's on the move, it's taking on new life, it's taking on new participants, it's taking on a new agenda. As you remember, I started back in March and it was just me. And then God gave me a vision to start bringing others on the show to talk about recovery from perspectives that I can't touch. I read about it, but I don't know about it. So I want the experts to come online and talk about recovery from other perspectives. So I'm proud to have Miss Millie, Miss Terry, and Miss Janet here today, and then my granddaughter behind the cameras today. And so a few questions I'd like to start off with. Because first of all, how did you get here before we get into the other segue into the other part of the show? So Miss Terry, how you get here?
Well, I got here, actually, it was so long ago when I got here, so, but let me elaborate a little bit on the dysfunctional part of my life. Coming from a dysfunctional home, and education was not important. Just no morals, values on the family structure. So when I crossed over from being a young teenager into adulthood, got married at 18 years old, thinking that I was grown, and all of a sudden being married didn't feel good anymore. That responsibility was a little too much. It was too heavy for an 18-year-old. So I started hanging out, back then in the 70s and 80s, we were going to the cabarets, and I found myself constantly want to party all the time. That was my primary focus, was to party.
Okay.
And started going to the cabarets, leaving the cabarets in the wintertime barefooted, a lot of times, leaving with people that I didn't know, waking up with people I didn't know. And so the drug scene was, it's hard to kind of put into words in such a short time, but it went from there to hanging out with people that were, just the whole thing was to get high. Okay. It was about getting high. And even though weed is it's a drug, but it wasn't a heavy drug. At the time, it was recreational, it was fun, and I loved it. Okay. So I smoked weed up until 1987, and that was my drug of choice. Okay. And then in 86. In 86, somebody, because weed was smokable, and somebody said, try this.
Okay.
And it was in the form of a pipe. And the euphoria of it looked so good. The bowl, the people that brought it to me, it was just wonderful. And October of 86 is when I hit it. That was the first time. And from that point forward, it took me from 86 all the way to 89. Actually, I first came to fellowship in 87. So it took me on a trip, and it was called crack, for y'all that don't know. And it took me places that I never thought, I judged people. I remember when I first started going to the dope house, there was, the girls sitting on the couch looking like derelicts, and I was like, I'll never be like that. And 6 months later, guess who was sitting on that couch? I was. So that particular drug just drugged me down to, by the grace of God, I ended up keeping my job.
Okay.
Ended up retiring from that same job 5 years ago.
Okay.
So that was a blessing from God. But it was terrible. So how I got here was, at the time I was working at Detroit Medical Center, and it was an addict by the name of Dwight B. that was working on the psych floor, on the 6th floor. And a friend of mine said, you need to talk to Dwight. And she hooked it up. We met in the cafeteria at Harper Hospital, and he told me about a meeting at Wheeler's Recreation Center in the Rooster Projects, and I was acting brand new, like, you want me to go to the projects? Okay, and I had just left the door house the night before. But, so I ended up going to the meeting. That was my first meeting. And I met a lady, I think her name was Monica. And she embraced me, and from that point forward, I've been here. That's how I got here.
Wow.
So and a lot of times people say, well, you only smoked crack for 6 months. That 6 months told a hole in my butt.
Okay.
That's how I got here. And found out when I got here, it wasn't so much the drug, it was my lifestyle. It was that lifestyle I had to change.
Tell it.
And when I went to, I started going to the dances, and by me being attracted to the cabarets, the dances just helped me stay here for a long time, because I like to party still.
Clean
like to
dances.
party.
Oh, you mean the clean?
Yeah, the
dances.
clean
Okay,
dances.
the clean
Yes,
dances.
at
Okay.
Mount Zion, which they call AKA the zoo.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And that helped me stay here for a long time. I don't even go anymore, but yeah, that was it.
Okay. Man. Wow, you qualified.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, Miss Millie, how you get here? I know
My story, I came via the helpline.
okay.
And I was using to live and live to use, but I thought I was a sophisticated addict.
Okay.
You know, I had a degree. I helped run a business with my parents, and I didn't do crack. So, you know, I was, and this is how I thought, this is how I talked.
Right.
I judged a lot, and I also isolated myself. So I was what I thought was a closet user, because I would go to what I know now was the dope house, but it was the significant other at the time. It was his home. And I used to always say when I came to the tables, oh, I didn't go to the dope house. I didn't go that low.
Right.
And this one here said, well, where did you get high at? And I told her, oh, over to my man. She said, okay, that was the dope house. And anyway, so one evening, my brother knew I was tiptoeing out because we used to use together. And he quit cold turkey.
Okay.
He got married, he just quit cold turkey, that was it. That's not my story. And I would tiptoe out, we lived together, I used to take my shoes off, go down the steps, leave out, park my car 2 blocks away, to cut through a few alleys to get to his house, to the dope house, and think he didn't know any difference. But anyway, he told my parents, which is who we both work for. And I never will forget that call on a Friday, because by Friday I was itching. I had to hurry up and get away.
Okay.
And my mother and father said, don't go nowhere, we want to talk to you for a minute. So they cornered me in the office.
Did you have a hint? Did you know?
Oh, I knew immediately.
You knew, okay.
It was I had that heaviness, you know, when you got it in the gut, either you got to hurry up and get one, or uh-oh, I'm caught. You know, they done pulled the cover off of me. You know, so my father started asking me questions. And as he was asking me questions and checking me, my brother was standing there like this. Like, yup. And I never will forget, I saw my father tear. And he said, you can do whatever you like, but you can't do it here.
The big butt.
So it was like, get your stuff together and get out.
Okay.
So I had to move, find another. So I was like, and my mother was like, and hurry up. So I, being sassy, I went on and stormed out the door and went to the dope house, and he was like, you can't stay here. And I was shocked, but I stayed there for a little bit. But the bottom line is that I don't know. Oh, I was going through the yellow pages to try to get me some help.
Okay.
And somehow, some way, I called the NA helpline. And I said, yes, I need to talk to someone to get some help. Because I just get high on the weekends.
Right.
So I just need a little help. I still
Not
work
bad.
and I'm not bad. I
Right.
still have my car and everything. They was like, yeah, right. We're going to send you a meeting list.
Okay.
So they mailed me a meeting list. I got the meeting list. That was on Friday. I made my first meeting on Tuesday.
Okay.
Trastone Baptist Church. Woodrow Wilson and Taylor. And that was September 22nd of 88.
Okay.
I took my mama. I was scared to death. I was sitting there. I had an attitude. I was looking at everybody at the meeting, running everywhere. Like, these people crazy. They hollering. And it was a big old Italian girl standing in front of the meeting saying, shut the hell up, how you get there, sit down, the meeting about to start. I said, ooh, I'm in the wrong place.
Right.
I don't drink coffee. What is their problem?
Right.
So I just sat there just to appease my mother
Okay.
so she could tell my dad I was okay.
Right.
Nah, I wasn't. It didn't appease anything.
Okay.
So I kept coming to the meetings. It was immediate. I felt better than. I excluded myself, but I was attracted to the chaos, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
This one here had on a long leather coat and a Coach purse and a jig curl. I was like, ooh, she killing it. And my whole thing was that, okay, I'm gonna stay up in here, but I'm gonna find me a man or somebody up in here getting high.
Right.
I love the dances because I too was a party animal. I hated when Mondays came.
Okay.
So Monday turned into Tuesday because I abused that power of working for my family. And the work week became Tuesday through Thursday, Friday morning. I'd be back and never came back to Tuesday.
Okay.
And it was a terrible thing. I could see, now I never will forget, my brother, he used to take my wrist, literally, like this, and dangle it, and my wrist would dangle inside his fingers. That's how bony I was.
Okay.
And I couldn't see it. I was like, he's like, something wrong with you. I said, ain't nothing wrong with me, it's wrong with you. Y'all crazy, it's not me.
Right.
So, and I never looked back. I went to the dances. Terry was my first sponsor in the program.
Okay.
And it was on and popping because I was going to make every dance, every meeting. I was going to one day be that one standing in front of the meeting saying, shut up, sit down. And and they were listening. When she said, shut up, sit down, they sat down. I said, whoa.
Like that.
Whoa, shut up.
Right.
I'm going to stay. And so I came at the beginning and stayed to the end. To the bitter end, counting the money. I liked that. I would, act like I had some skills, with some money. Couldn't keep a dime, So it was definitely a program of attraction,
Okay.
and I never looked back.
So you both detached from family? Both of you?
No, I never, although my parents told me I had to get out,
Right.
after a few weeks and they saw that I was making those meetings and I wasn't, I think they correlated my drug use with this particular individual.
Mm-hmm.
And I never will forget, this guy told me, your mama is crazy. They crazy. They came over here tapping on my door, threatening me if I ever see you again. Da, 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 da. So I just left that alone.
Okay.
And when I did that, I could see they slowly, letting me back in. Okay, yeah, you can move back upstairs. Oh yeah, here are your keys to your car. It was just a slow progression of, getting back in. But it wasn't any type of detachment.
Okay.
It was just, they always looked at me, I've been watching. Yes, side-eye. I was always side-eye, and the people that I got high with at the time, I had cut myself off from that individual, but then I had one girlfriend and I, quote unquote, Lord have mercy, she was a police officer. And I cut myself off from her, and I only hung around NA people. I made my life and my everything NA because I did not want to disappoint my father.
Okay.
My bottom was my father, seeing him. My drug of choice was cocaine. I stayed out there so long because I thought long as I didn't do crack, I was good. Because I was offered crack. But when I saw somebody shaking like that, I said, oh no, you shaking too tough. So, my drug of choice was cocaine, but it was still killing me.
Yeah.
Right.
It was eating
Killing you
in-
softly.
Killing me softly. Killing me softly. So,
Man, that's something. To just know, how you got here. I see you here. I see you moving, shaking, powerful in the fellowship, looked up to from others.
Making a
Just coming
difference.
into the program.
Making a
I
difference.
see
in
you like
yourself.
making a difference. I see the women's programs that you have. Matter of fact, you guys had me come to one of you guys' conferences. My wife and I
yes.
came to the conference. She still talk about that sometimes. She was there, had her shirt on, felt good. She wasn't in recovery, but she felt good.
Yes.
At that conference.
Yeah.
And so we see you guys doing so much, for the community. And then there was a comment that came my way that says that women in recovery have a different journey
Yes.
Absolutely.
that is totally different. Now, being a clinician, I want to say I know about that and I know about that, but I have to be honest and sincere and say I read about it.
Right.
I read about it in my little books. I seen it, in some people that I knew, but it wasn't enough really to really speak on it or know about it. And I think that Recovery Live got to go to the level where women can talk about it, because there's women out there right now. They looking.
Absolutely.
This program is global.
Yes.
It's not just in this living room.
Absolutely.
I got my granddaughter over here listening and looking, and behind this camera, her mama, which is my daughter, listening and looking behind the camera. It's my co-workers, some of them is listening, looking behind the camera. I got some of my church folks listening, looking behind. I mean, we don't know who behind that camera
Right.
that need to hear Recovery Live from a woman's perspective. You talked about tears of recovery. I mean, I heard you say something about widows in recovery. I heard you say something about women that have to go through different things. I mean,
stages.
when I had to get mine,
Right.
I know what I had to do. Put my boxer on and walk
Right.
down over the east side and get my stuff together
Right.
and manipulate a situation or circumstance. And I was on it, but it's different.
It's still
for the
women.
woman in
Yes,
recovery.
it is.
Definitely.
Let's talk, I mean, maybe we could talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, people want to know. And a lot of times, these type of conversations, because of the stigma
Right.
that's associated with recovery and addictions and things like that, there's a lot of people that get recovered, or they get into recovery, and they put a mask on and go back to their job, go back to their church, go back to their family,
Right.
and never really talk about it because people,
The shame.
the shame and the guilt that's associated, people don't want to talk about it because people say that was one of them,
Still judge, yeah.
and that was one of them.
Shunned
And so,
away,
really.
people need to hear the raw, the core
Mhm.
of what's going on with women in recovery. Talk to the women, talk to the men, talk to the pastors, talk to the counselors, talk to the government and the city, the state officials, talk to people
Absolutely.
and let them know what it's like
Okay.
and how what you feel can help us as we think about women in recovery.
What came to my mind when you were saying that was the fact that we're the nurturers of our children.
Right.
And a lot of times with women coming into recovery, a lot of them lost their children in the system.
Yeah.
And for me, I was blessed enough. I should have lost them, but I didn't because my mother was there with them. But I remember going to the dope house, and this was part of my bottom, and my son was in the car because I had promised myself that Friday, that was it.
Right.
And that was
Last
it.
one.
And I'll get ready to take my baby and get him some gym shoes and Eastland. And I'm driving up 94, trying to make it to Eastland, and I hit that Chalmers exit, and I'm gonna stop and get just one. Just one. That was about 4 o'clock. He was in the car. I came out of there at 12 midnight. And my baby stayed in the car the whole time. And he came to the door, and the doorman was like, "Tell him to quit knocking on that door." I could not pull myself out of there to save my life.
The grips.
The grips had me, and I just remember that bottom because it was the love for my son that I didn't want to have to take him through that no more.
Okay.
So coming into recovery, a lot of times as women, the children is a big factor in that. And don't get me wrong, men love their children too.
Right.
But a lot of times women come in without the men with kids. So that's a big issue.
Yeah, they don't want to do
Big one.
treatment.
Right. A lot of
Because
treatments
don't
want to
take the children.
Absolutely.
Right.
So they have that problem of what are we going to do about these kids?
Right.
The ones that have their kids in the system may be a little better off, but the kids are not better off.
Right.
So as you get clean, your conscience start bothering
Sure,
you.
they
You
do.
know, I've lost my kids, and what kind of mother was I? So you come to you get out of treatment, you come to the tables, your baby's still in treatment, and you sharing about it, and then all of a sudden, you've been clean enough to get your kids back, and they come back and you can't handle it.
Oh, wow, okay.
Right.
You haven't been a parent
This is a
before
whole
these,
new
and then
journey.
you got these crackhead babies
chapter.
running around, jumping off of tables, and you're
Right.
like,
Right.
and a lot of times we lose them to that. They go back out and use because they don't have the parenting skills to deal with their children.
Right.
So that's part of the recovery process that a lot of men don't go through
Absolutely. Absolutely.
as much as women do.
Okay.
You
Right.
know, and I remember telling a girl one time, "You sure you want the babies back? Do you have somebody that can take care of them for you? Because it's gonna be different."
Yeah. That requires a support system as well.
It does.
Absolutely.
So that's just one aspect of women in recovery that I wanted to speak on.
So what about the humiliation and the shame? You know, how you go in treatment, before you go in treatment, you know, there may have been things that you did you know, we did that we were ashamed of. You know, I was a prostitute, so I was definitely ashamed. Went in treatment with my head down. You know, I had been to bed with so many men, I just thought that was my job to lay on my back.
Mm-hmm.
And so that humiliation was really hard for me to deal with. Did either one of you have to go through any kind of?
Well, I didn't go to treatment. for
Okay.
one.
Okay.
Right.
I can,
Oh, that's
the
right.
tables was my treatment.
Okay, well that's still
And the
good.
tables, but the guilt and the
Mhm.
shame,
And the shame.
here it is, 30-something years later, and sometimes it still creep up.
Yes, it does.
It
Very
will still
prevalent.
creep up, especially
Mhm.
with my children
Mhm.
again, you know, and I always, it's not funny, but I see it as a joke when I do my talks that I did the same thing. I slept with, I can't even count them. I
Oh,
remember
no.
in my step study group, we did an exercise where we was gonna write down all the men that we slept with. And I got to write, my stomach started flipping. I was like, what the? But the thing I learned
Okay.
in A was, I was just giving them away. I didn't know I was supposed to get paid till I got paid.
For real.
Yeah, I ain't know.
Wow.
So
Now that's different.
Yeah, that's
For
different.
real. That's
But it's a
really
lot of
different.
women their self-esteem is so low. That's
Oh,
what they're
yeah.
doing. They
Yeah.
sleeping with
Anything.
men, looking for love in
Right.
all the wrong
Just
places.
to get one.
Yeah.
Just to get some attention.
Just
to
to
get
get
that
the
hug.
attention. Yeah.
What
And
about
you
you,
know,
Millie?
That's a great segue that you said, looking for love in all the wrong places. And I think for me, when I didn't go through treatment either.
Okay.
However, I had so much shame about abusing my body, because not only did I sleep with whoever, wherever, with no protection,
Mm-hmm.
I also used abortion as a means of birth control.
Okay.
So I never will forget, and this is clean, I got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And I already knew, I'm not keeping this baby, I don't know who the daddy, you know. I wouldn't-
Right.
And if it is him, I definitely ain't keeping this baby. You know, so I had an abortion. I told my parents after the fact. My daddy was like, what? You did what? You don't do nothing like that. And my mom was like, good. Good, you do what you do. You know, but I had to do much work for that haunting to leave me, because throughout my recovery,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I came in 88.
Right.
So I was always looking for love in the wrong place. I was looking for it in a man.
Okay.
I wanted a man to validate me. So the first one that came and said, hey, beautiful, it was like, hey.
Right.
But I on the other end was, oh, what you got?
Mm-hmm.
Because you ain't coming with no goodies.
Right. Right.
No money, no
Right.
money.
Yes,
You know, right. So, so the first man that told me I looked good and bought me gifts and gave me things and dressed up my outer, it was like on and popping. So
Right.
y'all said don't get in a relationship for a year. Well, one day after that year, I got married
Okay.
to my first husband.
Okay.
You know, didn't pray about it, didn't talk about it, just was geek because somebody loved me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that somebody wanted to be with me and I could do it, sex that is,
Mm-hmm.
clean.
Mhm.
I didn't need no drugs.
Okay.
What? I can feel this? Oh my God.
Right.
You know, it was like something new.
Right.
Okay, so I got married.
Mm-hmm.
It was an abusive relationship. By the grace of God, I was able to get out of it. And when I say abusive,
Mm-hmm.
I ain't talking about no little bitty abusive. I'm talking about like when they push you, you almost fall out the window break. I'm talking about you running around the table so tough, you got bruises all on your leg and you're trying to hide them. And this one here said, oh my God, what's wrong with your leg? Oh, nothing. You know, I'm talking about collaring me, and I'm talking about serious physical abuse. So it was a blessing that I had a home group,
Yes.
because I went to my home group and I talked about it. And one thing I can do, people say, oh no, you be embarrassed, you can't talk. You could talk about it without saying exact about it. I know I did.
Okay.
And then finally, you know, I got to a place where these people were my family.
Okay.
Okay, they protected me. I nurtured me.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm out of here. You know, so I got out of that relationship, and I found out I had a little butt, you know, and I was growing breasts, and you know, I could wear my clothes tight, and I was looking good, and
Right.
you know, it was like I was getting more attention,
Right.
you know, so it was like, okay, next. Who's next?
Right.
Okay. You know, so I started dating another young man, and just by the grace of God, that man did not want to lay down with me. He loved me.
For you.
For me. I told this one here because this was my dog. Okay? I said, he gay. Something wrong with him. He don't want this.
Right.
You know? So
What's going
she
on?
said, girl, bye. Go sit down with your hot tail. Ain't nothing wrong with that, baby. And 3 or 4 years later, I ended up marrying this man.
Okay.
And it was a very fruitful relationship. And I just remember doing much work because I loved him so much and he loved me. I wanted to have his child.
Okay.
And never got pregnant. I thought it was something wrong with me. I said, God, I'm sorry. I know I had that abortion, but please let me have a... It wasn't that. Every woman is not going to have a child and birth one. That's not saying that you're not going to be a mother, because I'm Mama Millie to many.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
But I didn't birth any children.
Yeah.
So I had to do a lot of writing, a lot of soul searching, a lot of talking, a lot of 4 steps, a lot of sharing about how it really made me feel. And everybody around Mother's Day was talking about mama, and you know, everybody was a mama and a daddy. But then I started noticing, no, they weren't.
Right.
There were some women that did not, you know, have children, and I needed to talk to them so that it could be more like a support group.
Right.
And all I remember when I married my second husband, I was like, Lord, I got to get with you for me. I need a God of my own understanding, not mama's God, not going to her church. I need this guy for me.
Okay.
And the bottom line is that at that time, me and my husband, we joined this church together, and we started learning about the Word of God. And we didn't get it twisted. We knew we were recovering addicts. Okay, and that we had some loose screws up here.
Right.
But we also knew that we had hearts. And God, it was an inside job. And couldn't nobody fix that but God.
Yeah.
You know, so as I just continued to come around, that, like I said, that marriage was fruitful, and I'm just full speaking ahead. He had 3 daughters,
Okay.
and out of the 3, 2 took to me, just like no thing.
That's a blessing.
It was a blessing. It was a blessing in the present of the relationship.
Yeah.
And me and my second husband, we was like Mud and Jeff. We was dogs, you know. So I learned so many things in that relationship. I learned how to be a wife. I learned how to love unconditionally. I learned how to love to death do you part. I learned how to be a friend and how to have relationships. And it took time to nurture those relationships, whether it be men or women.
Right.
I learned how to be a good friend. I made many mistakes. It was lots of tears. But the bottom line is that God, I realized I was being developed.
Right.
And I was just so grateful. And all I can say is that Terry has been from day one in my recovery. And we have been attacked because of our relationship, because of our bond. Something wrong with y'all, or you know, they would talk about me to her and her to me, and we was like, no, you can't do that. It was a lot of jealousies. So it's some things you have to get past
That's right.
But you must seek God and you must seek your inner self.
Okay.
Okay, you got to be true to yourself, because if not, I could have never stayed in this relationship. You know, that's longer than it was with my marriage. You know, Tina and I were married, you know, and I think that's why our ministry that we have, which is called Divine Intervention Ministries, is so fruitful and was such a blessing, and we could work so much together because we knew each other. Inside and out, you know, we could cry together, we could laugh together, we could say you are a lie, and slap each other together, and then we could come back and hug together. I mean, I'm talking about we loved each other unconditionally. She could say, Millie, you talk too much. I said, and you don't talk enough. You know, we really balanced each other out, and that's why our ministry again is so fruitful and is so spiritual, and the base is Galatians 5:22 and 23, the fruits of the Spirit. Wow. And it was nothing but God. Because we was like, what we gonna call it? Her grandson was Divine. Divine, yeah. And it's an intervention, girl. Divine intervention. I mean, it was like God was just giving us, and I'm talking about we started from scratch. We didn't have a dime.
Okay.
And we raised the funds. We learned how to become a nonprofit. We learned how to establish relationships with women. We taught them that they could have positive, fruitful, loving relationships. And we told them the old lie's dead. Women do get along with women.
Yes.
And they do recover. And guess what? It wasn't just women in recovery. Because women are recovering from everything. We recovering from being too fat, too skinny, from being light skinned, dark skinned, from having long hair, short hair,
no hair,
okay, from having a man to not having a man, to having a husband to not having a, to cheating on you, to not hating on you. We recovering from so much, from cursing. You know, we recovering from a lot of different things. So it was a ministry where it was to educate, embrace, and empower women.
Okay.
And we could do that through the speakers, through dance, through exercise, through sharing, through midnight talks, through dancing. And then we became open and said through male speakers, because they can tell us something as well. You know, it was through comedy. That ministry, I miss it. I'm talking about
fashion show.
Yes, fashion show. I'm grieving. I'm mourning it because, you know, it's like COVID. Just kind of we were doing a cruise.
It's a party,
and we
actually it was the last fruit of the Spirit. Every year we celebrated the fruits of the Spirit. So we started off with love.
Okay.
And this year would have been so that means we were together was 9 years. 9 years. And the last fruit of the Spirit was planning a cruise. And we were going to do that last fruit of the Spirit on the cruise. Of course, the pandemic came. And to segue off of Millie, we have been through a lot together. And women in recovery that have a substantial amount of screen time like us, we have been through a lot. She had 2 weddings, and I was in both of them. I had one wedding, which was when I married the love of my life. And we both ended up widows in recovery. She lost her husband first, and a few years later, I lost mine. And to the people that's out there, that I do believe was one of the hardest things that I had to do in recovery. Because he was my soulmate.
Everything.
He was my everything. You know, he wasn't my God, no, but he was right there.
Unique,
you know,
especially you.
And he passed away last year, and I remember when Millie's husband passed away, and she stayed in a big giant house. They had a house in Redford, and I just couldn't imagine, because a lot of times once she had to stay in the house for a while. And I just couldn't imagine being in the house without her. And I just looked up to her. That it didn't, she didn't use, she didn't talk about using, you know, and I just really put you on a pedestal at that time because I just couldn't even fathom.
Right.
So years later, here I am, and the love of my life of 26 years passed away suddenly. He wasn't sick or anything, he just passed away that day. And I woke up, when I woke up that morning, I was a married woman. When I went to bed, I was a widow. And
That's amazing.
it's amazing.
And I do want to say, I want people to know, you know, I was blessed with Millie. I lost my partner over 38 years. And Millie called me. I'll never forget that. And when you called me, I couldn't understand why.